Hello, and welcome to Around the Political World with John Rothman. I am your host, John Rothman. If you're a fan of the show, make sure to hit the follow button on the top right of Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or wherever you are listening at this very moment. When you hit follow, leave a review or share an episode with a friend. It helps other people discover the show, keeps us going, and as I like to remind you each and every day, expands our base. Who is in charge? That's the question. On so many different levels in the White House. I want to suggest to you this morning that there is only one person in charge, and that's Donald Trump. Harry Truman summed it up best with a little sign he had on his desk. The buck stops here. So let's analyze where we are in terms of presidential leadership at this critical time in our history. I want to begin with the domestic concerns, primarily with the question of, are we in a trade war or not? Do tariffs matter? And will it make a difference? You are seeing market volatility because people don't know what the bottom line will be on Donald Trump's tariffs. He is either for them or he's not sure about them. He's either implementing them or they're on hold. And in the meantime, the nations of the world have to figure out what in the world is the United States doing. Let me explain to you, this is not decisive leadership. This is not powerful, compelling leadership on the part of Donald Trump. More than that, it is affecting all of the American people, all of us. Now, I can tell you right now that the minute Target says that their prices are going up because of the tariff impositions, if in fact they are implemented, well, I've got news for you. The American people will feel it in their pocketbook. And do you remember what James Carville said back in 1992 in the presidential campaign? It's the economy, stupid. If the economy begins to fail, if people see prices going up, Donald Trump will suffer the consequences. But let's point out that the unemployment rate, because of massive layoffs in the federal government, because of Doge, well, they're going to have implications for all of us as well. There is no doubt that what Donald Trump is doing is not using a scalpel. They're using a method. Well, you saw Elon Musk standing there with his saw, and he is prepared to do whatever it takes to reduce government. But let me explain to you that that's not necessarily a good thing. Take a look at what's happening in the VA, the Veterans Administration, where vital services seem to be in jeopardy, including their line of people who can call for suicide prevention, for answers to questions. The same thing applies in Social Security. People are feeling threatened, and the minute people are feeling threatened, the ability of the administration to function effectively is limited. And it's not the cabinet officials who are really responsible. Or maybe they are. Did you hear Donald Trump say yesterday that Elon Musk isn't making the decisions? The cabinet officials are making a decision? Well, let me tell you something. It's one or the other. But in the end, it's Donald Trump who is responsible. Why do I say this? Because the volatility of the market, not only in the United States, but around the world, the concern of our allies, including our allies in Canada and in Mexico, are of genuine concern. By the way, Donald Trump continues to refer to Prime Minister Trudeau as Governor Trudeau, continues to allude to the fact that Canada should be the 51st state, continues to make statements that are absolutely contradictory to any consistent American policy, or, for that matter, realistic policy. Donald Trump is not providing firm, decisive leadership. And in fact, I think he's sowing confusion. And you can see it in the volatility, not only of the stock market, but of everything else. By the way, why did he retreat a little bit on the question of tariffs, at least for a short time? Because of the volatility of the markets. And then he says, I'm not watching the stock market. If you believe that, I have a bridge I'd like to sell you, and it's made out of gold. Unbelievable. Now let's talk for a moment about foreign policy. Donald Trump has held up shipments of arms to Ukraine. Let's be clear. Ukraine can survive for at least 6 months if American shipments are stopped. And the Europeans are determined to help Ukraine. But let me tell you, there is another aspect of this, another aspect that is fascinating, and that is Ukraine is able to fight the war with a modicum of effectiveness because of intelligence that they receive from the United States. And what has Donald Trump done? He has shut down the intelligence exchange with Ukraine. It is shocking, horrific, and terrible, and a betrayal of our ally, Ukraine. There is something seriously wrong in the Trump administration. And then, of course, his comments that if Hamas does not release all of the hostages immediately, well, they're finished, they're through. And of course, behind the scenes, although we now know it's true, he's talking to Hamas. It is an astounding reversal of American policy. Maybe it's consistent with Donald Trump's inconsistency, but I point that out with some hesitation because we cannot afford to have a president of the United States who is viewed as indecisive, unable to make up his mind, who vacillates and sends mixed signals. And then again, there is another mixed signal being sent. The question is, if courts consistently rule against Donald Trump, which they are, what will Donald Trump do when it goes to the Supreme Court? And if the Supreme Court rules against him on questions of executive action, what will happen? Will there be a constitutional showdown between the president and the court? And is that the gauntlet that we now face in terms of what some are calling a constitutional crisis? Their Supreme Court is going to play a central role because in the end, as you all are aware, the Supreme Court is the final arbiter. I have mentioned here on this podcast Marbury versus Madison. Take a look, 1803, Google it, read it. The court in the end determines the constitutional parameters. We learned from Richard Nixon that a president must not defy the Supreme Court. What about Donald Trump? People in his administration, including Vice President Vance, including other key figures, are saying if the president does it, it's legal. Let me say to you very clearly, these are real questions. I wonder about the American presidency, the power of the presidency. And we are now going to enter a period of time, whether it is over tariffs or over American foreign policy, or whether it is over the courts, in which there will be a real test of wills. I am firmly committed to the principle of balance of power, of co-equal branches of government. America is not ruled by a king. America is ruled by a president, and a president has certain constraints. I believe this is the central constitutional issue that we face right now in the United States of America. This is a moment of, frankly, decisive, pivotal action by courts, by president, by Congress. And this is a moment when we need to reflect on all of the things that I have discussed with you today. Well, I have a weekend off, as you know, because we don't broadcast on Saturday and Sunday. But I can't imagine, or maybe I can, where we might be on Monday. And I'm telling you, we will be right here with you on Monday, monitoring and following everything that happens. But I want you to think about it. This really is a critical moment in our history. And always remember those determinative words of Harry Truman. The buck stops here, in the Oval Office. Thanks for tuning in to another episode of Around the Political World with John Rothman. Make sure to follow along and let me know your thoughts on the show by leaving a review on Apple Podcasts and sharing an episode with a friend or colleague so we can continue to grow and expand. You can interact with me on Facebook, on LinkedIn, and of course, you can email me, and I'm happy to try to respond to many of your thoughts and observations. And of course, a special thank you to the wonderful Gogo Zoger, who is the producer of this podcast. Thank you, Gogo. You do a great job. All right, that's it for now. I'll be back on Monday with another episode of Around the Political World with John Rothman. Have a great weekend. See you then.